You're listening to the Vocabit podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 53 of the Vocabit podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company Vocabit. So we're diving into the craft of writing actually at the moment, and today I'm going to share what I think is the most important piece of creative writing advice you will ever receive. You may have heard it before, but it absolutely bears repeating. And this advice is to show, don't tell. It is so easy as a storyteller to almost synopsize our story for the reader, particularly in shorter pieces of writing, like the Common App or various essays, where we have a lot to say and not that many pages to say it. When you're telling your story instead of showing it, it sounds like, and then there was a car chase, and then so-and-so died, and then so-and-so was sad. And it's easy to feel like because so much is happening, the story is interesting. But when you tell the story instead of showing it, it doesn't feel real, so people don't really get invested. This is where, in my opinion, TV has a huge advantage over books. It's almost impossible to tell rather than show a story on TV. If you're watching TV, the character probably isn't going to sit there and say, and then I was sad. They're going to show you that this character is sad. You're going to see them ugly crying over a bowl of popcorn. So as a writer, it's really helpful to almost imagine your story on TV and tell it that way. One book that did this really well is Olivia Jewell's and the Overactive Imagination by Helen Fielding. She's the author of Bridget Jones's Diary, in case you're wondering why that name sounds familiar. And this was one of my favorite books in high school. There are some swear words and inappropriate things in it, and I haven't read it in like 10 years, so I don't know how well it's aged. So I'm not suggesting you go read it so much as that you learn from it with me here. Olivia Jewell's and the Overactive Imagination is about a young reporter with an overactive imagination who thinks she's uncovered a terrorist plot, but no one will take her seriously. And the author does such a good job, even when she's just describing backstory, of showing us this girl's life. It would have been so easy to kind of write off her parents and just describe them as, middle class, but they wished they had more money. But instead, she shows us. Here's a quote from the book to show you what I mean. Until the age of 22, Olivia's only experience with hotels had been of dingy yet embarrassingly formal Crowns and Majestics. Strange smelling with bizarrely patterned carpets and wallpapers, where guests spoke in intimidated whispers and forcedly posh accents, and her entire family would freeze with shame if one of them dropped a fork or a sausage on the floor. End quote. Do you see how she's showing us the parents rather than just telling us about them? It brings the story and the people to life so much more than just saying, Olivia's parents wished they had more money. Now, of course, there are exceptions to every rule. Netflix, for instance, is advertising a movie called Enola Holmes, which comes out this week. It's about Sherlock Holmes' younger sister. And the trailer has the main girl talking directly to you all the time, telling us a story. But it is also constantly interspersed with very show-worthy details. In 3 minutes, she's riding her bike and jumping off a train and getting an old-timey makeover, and there's this rock music in the background, and it just makes it a little easier to break the fourth wall and just tell the story directly to the audience because there are so many show details in here. In writing, though, you don't have all of that. If you strip away all of those details and just kind of tell or synopsize the story, it usually doesn't feel real. And people care about real people. We've all probably read a book where we've been like, I honestly don't care if these characters live or die. And usually that's because the author didn't do enough show. As a reminder, a good trick is to think of your story like a movie. How could you show this happening? And really, whenever you can, whenever it makes sense, try to show something rather than telling it. Show your character slow crying over a bowl of popcorn instead of just saying, Harry felt sad. Show how your character's parents would freeze in shame if someone dropped something on the floor instead of saying they were kind of forcedly posh. Show what your characters' lives are like because real people have real experiences, and the more you show that within reason, the more real your characters are going to feel. I know that this is a big tip, but it is one that will really, really vastly improve your writing when you get the hang of it. Good luck. I'm going to be adding more writing resources to Vocabit in the coming weeks, including potentially the ability to get me to help you with your work. So keep an eye out for that, and I will see you on Thursday.